you can still interact with us, send us a message. In fact, at the end of this message, send an email to our pastor on what God showed you through this. And remember that tomorrow morning, which is Sunday, we have our on-campus worship at 9:30 and 11. And tomorrow online, you can watch us at 9:30, 11, and 8 p.m. Look forward to seeing you on our campus or online this next week.
Well, it's a joy to be with you today. We continue today the second in a series of messages we started last time we were together, entitled Small Books, Big Message. And what we are doing is focusing on some of the smaller books in the Bible that are easy to read in perhaps one setting, but at the same time, they're easy to flip past. And these might be books that you've not paid much attention to, but I believe offer great insight for us in our journey. We've looked last time we were together at Nahum, and that's not a book that many of us are familiar with, but a great resource for us in our time together. One of the minor prophets, some of the prophets of the Old Testament are referred to as minor prophets, and it's not minor because of their message. It's minor simply because they're smaller and more concise. We're going to look at another of those, and so if you have your Bible, look with me at the book of Haggai. Now, you can say Haggai or Haggai, either one of those two pronunciations are acceptable. Haggai, by the way, is the third book from the end of the Old Testament. So the easiest way for you to find it is go to Matthew. So if you'll just kind of open your Bible to find the red-lettered part, the New Testament book of Matthew, turn left, and the first book you'll come to is Malachi, the next one is Zechariah, and then you're going to be at Haggai. And today, we're going to look and focus our attention on Haggai. Now, Haggai is the second shortest book in the Old Testament. The shortest book in the Old Testament is Obadiah, and we'll be in Obadiah in a couple of weeks. But for today, we're going to look at that second smallest book in the Bible, Haggai. The historical context for this book can be found in the book of Ezra. If you go back in Ezra and kind of read in the earlier parts of Ezra, we discover some of the things that are happening historically that line up with the prophecy that we find in the book of Haggai. 70 years after the nation of Israel has been exiled in bondage in Babylon, they are able now to return to their homeland. Not all of them do. Many of them choose to just stay in Babylon. Of course, after that long an exile, some of them were born in Babylon. All they had ever known was that. But about 60,000 Jews leave Babylon and travel to Judah, and their goal is to return to their homeland and once again establish themselves as a nation and to continue to worship God as God had called them and instructed them to do. So they come back to Judah under the leadership of Zerubbabel, and immediately they rebuild the altar so that they can offer sacrifices, and they're able to reinstitute that sacrifice system, and they offer sacrifices and are able to worship. And within 2 years of them being back, they had already laid the foundation for the temple. So they were working toward the rebuilding of the temple there in Judah. Now, as they laid the foundation for the temple, it becomes apparent that they were making progress on that. Some Samaritans that were living in the area offered to help. And the Samaritans came and said, "Can we help you rebuild the temple?" And the Jewish people said, "No, we don't need your help. We don't want your help. We don't want anything to do with you. And I don't even know why you would bother to ask." Well, naturally, it made the Samaritans mad that the Jewish people turned down their generous offer. And so as a result of that, in anger, they solicited some help in the region. And they began to oppose the rebuilding of the temple. And they began to stand in opposition, doing everything they could to keep the building from moving forward. And as a result of that, construction on the temple stopped. I mean, it came to a standstill. 14 years go by with no work having been done on the temple. But 14 years, people had continued to live their life and had come to a place that they were accustomed to living their life without the temple. They built their houses, they built their businesses. They didn't just shut down and do nothing. They continued working toward building a life for these 14 years. But the temple of God was not touched. And so God